What is up, fam? Thank you so much for tuning in to So Real Sports Talk. Today, we are talking NBA. If you see the pretty boy on the side of me over here, you know we talking basketball, baby. I got my main man, Brandon Campbell, on the show. Brandon, it's been a minute, man. How you feeling?
Feeling good, man. I got a full haterade right here. Just
Let's go.
Ready to get into it. Let's do it.
Hey, we already got Amin jumping in. What up, Sunil? You didn't just shout out my boy Brandon, Amin?
That's cold-blooded, Amin. What's
Yo,
going on,
dude.
man?
And Brandon loves you too, Amin. And you don't love him back. That's messed up. But Brandon, for the most part, we got we kind of know what these NBA teams are looking like. For the most part, there may be some, alterations and changes, which we're definitely going to get into. So a lot to talk about. But first, I wanted to touch on just some of the news that has come out. So we'll start with, John Wall. So John Wall and the Rockets have announced that they're working together on a package to trade John Wall. What do you think about that? And obviously a lot of teams have filled their point guard positions, but where do you feel would be a good fit for John Wall to go?
It's kind of unfortunate that it's happening now, but I mean, the writing was on the wall, right? When they made their draft pick and they got who else was that? Kevin Porter Jr. Is it Kevin Porter? I wanted to say for a second. So they got their backcourt solidified for the future, but there's really no home for John Wall and his $45 million. Like, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough to move, right? Like, the only place you could have thought for him to go would have been OKC, but Boston beat them to the punch. That's probably why they pulled that trade so quickly during the offseason.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the teams that may need a point guard probably can't afford his contract and probably don't have the pieces that Houston would want, right? Because off the bat, maybe a team like the Clippers, because they just have Reggie Jackson really there. But I don't know if John Wall kind of fits with that team with Kawhi and Paul George, right? He's more of a slasher type, fast pace, up and down the court type of player. And I think the Clippers like slowing it down a little bit. But they can't afford him.
Yeah, it's the money. That's really the hardest part. Even if he was to come in and try to do like Rose, like coming off the bench now for some team, right? And just giving a team a solid 25, 30 minutes off the bench. It's just he costs so much money.
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel how are you going to justify taking up almost half your cap with a guy that's not going to be your star?
Yeah, and I don't even know if John Wall is a piece that takes you over the hump for any of these teams. You know what I mean? Because he could be, possibly, but we haven't seen it, right? He didn't play very consistent last season, was in and out with injuries. So, yeah, I think that's a tough trade. I think Houston probably is going to have to sell low just because of the contract. So they might not get much back for him. But maybe they feel like it's a net positive just to get that money off of the books.
I mean, yeah, it would have to be something like even when they traded for him, and it was like Westbrook, right? Because Westbrook's contract at that time was looked at as unmovable.
Yeah,
swapping them two seems like a natural fit. But the only other team I think that has a dude that has such a giant contract that's probably kind of worthless is the Cavs with Kevin Love, and what's John Wall going to do there? Like, there's no benefit for
Cleveland.
Yeah,
that doesn't fit their. Yeah, that doesn't fit what they're trying to do over there.
Exactly.
And I mean, Kevin Love is expendable just because of the big men that they have over there in Cleveland. But what would he do with Houston? That would just be Houston would have. Yeah, huh?
Houston has their big men too, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So they would have to like do a buyout with Kevin Love, and his contract's too big for that. So I doubt Kevin Love wants to take less than whatever he's owed on that contract. If you're not playing and you're making all them millions, might as well keep doing it, right?
Keep cashing them checks.
What's up, Brandon?
What's up, man?
Now he loves you again. I mean, he loves you again. Let's go with Ben Simmons. I mean, obviously the writing was on the wall for this as well, but Ben Simmons officially, requested a trade. kind of put the line in the sand, said he's not going to show up for training camp. So this kind of puts Philly in an awkward situation, because now all of a sudden Ben Simmons becomes a depreciating asset because you already know he wants to be traded. And once again, another point guard with teams that have already kind of filled all of their roles after the draft in free agency. So this really is about moving pieces, which is going to be, I think, difficult. Obviously, Ben Simmons is a different position than John Wall because of his youth, and he's still, a phenomenal defender and still has a lot of upside. But how do you see this playing out in Philly? And do you think that this trade actually gets made?
I think the thing that really separates Simmons from Wall, other than like the youth factor and him just being a lot better at this point, even if his last playoff performance was kind of spotty, is that Simmons can play other positions, right? Like he's got enough size to where you can bump him up to the 3, or even if you really want, supercharge him at like the 5, right? Like, so he can do other things. So that's where it makes him a little more valuable. The only problem is, from like other sports podcasts and stuff that I listen to and stuff like that, they keep saying like Morey's waiting for Dame to be available, like for Dame to be like, I'm ready to go, like I want out of here. And I just don't see Simmons being enough for the Blazers. Like I don't see the Sixers having the best package, even if it is Simmons, that's available to the Blazers for Dame. You know what I mean? So I feel like they're hurting their team there. They do need to make some kind of trade. I really like, even if it sticks with Portland, but CJ for Simmons. I'd like to see Simmons in Portland, but playing with Dame and playing more as his center, and the guy that's just getting the ball off the rim and going and alleviating some of that pressure off of Dame, because Dame, anytime he's bringing the ball up the court, they're trapping him right away. You know what I mean? And having another dude, especially a big body like that, could really help him out.
And I think Dame could play off the ball and be
absolutely.
like more and be very productive. It might even actually help his game out, because he's such a lethal shooter, and he's not necessarily. I mean, he could obviously distribute. I forgot how to speak English real quick. He obviously could distribute, but that's not necessarily the forefront of his game. So if he has another playmaker there and he could just be, the scoring guard, that might actually elevate his game and help the team out overall, and probably save some energy for him as well, having another ball handler out there. I just don't think. I mean, I think Daryl Morey might be overvaluing Ben Simmons, or at least playing that role just to see how much he could get. It could be all business, but we know Daryl Morey is a mover and a shaker. I don't think there's a GM that's made more trades in the league over the the tenure that he had with the Rockets than Daryl Morey, right?
So a gang of blockbusters. It was like
absolutely
the Rockets. You were like, dang, the Rockets just made that move. Like,
they got Chris. They got what? They got Russ. They got Chris Paul. They got so they traded away.
I don't think that was a trade, but I think it was a sign. But it was a big move that Morey made. You know what I mean? Like he's constantly doing things.
Traded away Capella. So they're used to making big time. He's used to pulling the trigger. So I think they have to. I mean, especially we'll see how Ben Simmons feels if he's really gonna like not show up and do kind of like what James Harden did. But yeah, I mean, I really think Ben Simmons. I think a team like the Golden State Warriors is maybe an option because they have a lot of young players and maybe some draft picks. Well, I guess they gave the draft pick, but they have at least a lot of young players and maybe a mixture of young players and veterans that they could send over there for Ben Simmons, just because I think everybody knows he wants out. So you're not going to get the package of just a whole bunch of number 1 draft picks and stuff like that, like you've seen for some of these other blockbuster trades.
So the thing with the Warriors, I wonder, my only concern with that is if they had to give up so many of their young assets, because I really like what they have right now with the collection of veterans and then their 2 picks, like the young guys that they have. I think they right now have a real solid foundation for playing for now and playing for the future. And so I think if you have to give up a lot of those for Simmons, that's more of a now play, and it probably hurts your future. So I don't know that I'd do it if I was them, unless it was just like Wiggins, maybe one of the young guys, and then other picks. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but I mean, you got to still look at we look at Ben Simmons as a veteran, but he's still super young as well.
He's like what, 23, 24?
Yeah, maybe around there. So you have him for another 10 years, and he's not somebody who gets injured very often. So like, and when you get these kind of superstars, look, if Steph plays another 4 or 5 years, if Clay plays another 4 or 5 years, I'm assuming Draymond has to go in the trade to make the money match and stuff like that. You got Ben for another 10 years. For like 4 or 5 years, none of these young players are breaking the starting lineup. You know what I mean? So they're going to just be bench players and things like that. I think you got to look at how the Lakers do it. You go after the superstar, give up your young future, go get your titles, and then maybe you suck for a few years, but then you just re-up with another superstar and so on and so forth. I think Golden State plays that game as well. Versus, I don't know. I just think that's the way that you win in the NBA.
With that, well, I think the other thing you need is depth, and I think that's what you're seeing right now with a lot of teams is they're a lot deeper than what they used to be.
Right.
And the Lakers, honestly, their plan, the way they were doing it, was never going to work unless LeBron was going there, because he was truly the only superstar that showed. He was like, you know what, I'm ready to go to LA, and it wasn't because he wanted to play for the Lakers. It was because of
all the other
ventures
stuff
that he wanted to go there for. So honestly, if that would have never happened, like, the Lakers are not the Lakers, and that plan doesn't look like a good plan. I think.
Yeah, but they always pull that off, right? So even if you, for some reason, they're always able to get one of the biggest stars in the game to come over.
Always? I mean,
because they had Shaq, right?
Okay.
They
Shaq.
obviously they had Shaq. They drafted, obviously drafted Kobe, so that doesn't count.
All right.
But they were able, Chris Paul wanted to go there. That got nixed by the league. Pau Gasol.
It was in a trade, not in free agency.
What I'm saying is they always figure out a way to bring in the big superstar, whether it be through trade, whether it be through. What I'm saying is the mentality of forgetting about the draft picks and the youth.
Brother. I'm sorry. I said your Laker mind is clouded. You named.
I don't know. I just know. I just know over the last however many years they've won more championships than any other team. So like we could talk about it being clouded, but I'm saying that thought process, they won championships in every decade.
It worked in the past. It doesn't work right now. The way to do it now is you build your team through the draft, right?
What team has done that and been successful and won a championship?
The Bucks,
other than
the Warriors.
I mean, the Warriors, yeah, but that's like they were able to hit on some like superstars. That's not everybody, right? Like
they drafted 7th, and what was Clay what was Clay's draft?
What I'm saying is they hit on superstars, right? But most people's draft doesn't build. They're not able to build that way. You know what I mean? Like most people, if they get the superstar, they're out of the top picks, right? So like, Milwaukee is there too, but Giannis is a different beast, right? But you look at Portland. Portland has had, a lot of great, like decent draft picks, but they're not able to really crack it because they haven't hit on the right type of superstar to change the game. So I mean, it's to be said. Like, who knows? Like Celtics are trying it that way. We're seeing them kind of struggle to take to the next thing. It's really hard to land that like name-changing, game-changing superstar, right? They only come around every now and then.
Once every few years, yeah.
Yeah,
those are rare breeds.
Right.
Dallas looks like they got it with Luka, though.
Dallas got it with Luka. Atlanta got it with Trey.
I'm not ready to say Trey's there. I like what Trey's done, but I feel when guards are that small, I just feel like it's hard to really win with them. You have to build around them, and they've done a really good job of building around them.
Yeah, they have a good team.
I like their team. But again, that's a lot of depth on that team, right?
Yep.
Like they've drafted really well and then signed solid veterans at like a cool price. Like it's not like they're throwing away just tons of money on.
For sure. Yeah, man. So it's interesting to be said. If push comes to shove, where would be if you had to bet right now, where would your money go as far as where Ben Simmons goes?
Where I want him to go to Portland.
Right.
I love that lineup. I love a lineup of him or Dame, Norman Powell, Larry Nance, him, and then Nurkic or Covington. One of those two, running one of those two out. As for where he's actually going to go, man, I really don't know. I feel like it's real similar with Wall, right? Like it's just there's not really he's worth a lot of money, but he's a little more valuable than Wall. But there's really
I think he's a lot more valuable than Wall. A lot more valuable than Wall.
But for the teams that could truly use him right now, like they don't have anything that Philly wants. So unless Philly's willing to take a lesser package for it,
right.
I mean, like they're saying like Minnesota wants him, right? Or Sacramento, even Sacramento wants him. But Sacramento's not willing to give up Fox,
yeah.
Which I think you have to. I don't want to see Fox and Simmons play together. And then even Minnesota's crazy. They're like, we don't want to give up D'Angelo, Edwards, or Towns. Which I mean, obviously you don't want to give up Towns, but like, what else do you have outside of that?
Right.
Like, nobody has anything that is just like, yeah, let's make this happen.
Right.
Even Draymond as a fit in Philly's not a good fit. Like he's gonna play next to Embiid. Ooh, that'd be a monster in paint though. Like if it was still a league dominated by like big men, it'd be cool because nobody'd be able to do anything.
I just think that maybe his leadership and his toughness on defense, I think Philly could use like a veteran that's won before to kind of help these young guys learn how to win. Because we look at Embiid and everybody talks about his biggest thing is maybe maturity, and stamina, but that probably goes back to work ethic and maturity and stuff like that. Right. So Draymond could probably help out with that. They already, and he's not somebody who necessarily needs to play as many minutes as Ben Simmons played. So he opens up minutes for these other young guys that are on the team, like Matthias, if he stays, or Shake Milton, whomever else is there. So I think it could be good, and obviously they probably have to throw in some of their young draft picks, and I'm sure maybe another player or so. But I really think that if Golden State is looking to kind of recreate what they had when they made their run, Ben Simmons can play that Draymond role to a T, and that helps out Ben because he doesn't necessarily need to be that great of a shooter. He could just be a slasher, distributor, and focus on being, the defensive stopper for that team. And they have so much shooting with Clay and Steph that, it'll open up the middle of the floor for him. Even Wiseman could shoot, so he doesn't necessarily need to be a post-up type of big man. So it gives Ben Simmons free range to be able to just, slash and have the paint to himself kind of thing.
Could Wall help Philly?
I don't think he's a good enough shooter, right? Because once again, it'll be the same type of thing. I think he's a better shooter than Ben Simmons. He at least tries to shoot, but
isn't that all you need right now for Philly? Because I mean, they have other shooters on the team, but if Simmons is just so unwilling to shoot,
right? Like he could. I don't know. I just think that the type of player that they need to bring in is a assist and 3 type person, right? Because
go ahead, sorry.
What I'm saying, well, John Wall, I don't think is like, he doesn't have that lethal shot. He still likes to slash, he still likes to drive, and anybody that needs the paint is gonna mess up, Embiid, because he's gonna force him to be the 3-point shooter when Embiid. That's when most teams are able to like really beat Philly, is when Embiid isn't aggressive in the paint.
Well, Wall gets dimes, bro. Wall can pass. He's a top flight distributor.
Yeah.
So I don't know about that, but my thought process was, and not so much a Simmons for Wall trade, but some kind of 3-team trade. Because I'm trying to figure out where could you move Draymond, right? Because I don't want Draymond in Philly. And so what if it was like a 3-team trade where you're sending Wall to Philly, Draymond or Wiggins. I mean, because Wiggins kind of fits that price range too, to Houston, and then Simmons to Golden State.
Yeah, I just don't know. I think Draymond throws a fit because he's not competing anymore. I mean, maybe it's a buyout option for him, and then he'll end up with Brooklyn or the Lakers.
That's what
so
he'll do because he's a chump.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's tough to see. It's tough to tell because you don't know what teams are willing to make to trade the pieces, and the draft just happened, so we don't know who has the picks and all that kind of stuff to be able to even make a trade like that. I know OKC has the picks, but who knows if they want a guy like Simmons?
Nah, they don't want Simmons. You want me to tell you who needs to make this trade right now?
Who?
The Lakers. AD for Simmons right now. Just do it straight up. You'll have somebody that's actually healthy. It's actually there all the time.
Yeah, but would Philly do that?
You know what? If I was Philly, I'd do it. I mean, why the hell not? I don't know because both those guys are injured all the time.
Right.
Could you imagine? That'd be insane.
Yeah. I mean, they would be playing the way the Lakers usually play with just domination on a big man, but
beating up everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that, AD for me, I think he's going to have a good season this year, but I was willing to trade him if Dame came. You know what I mean? So it's not like
trade him for Dame.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that Dame's going to be a gamer in the playoffs where AD is like in and out, right? And I think that we only have maybe a couple more years of LeBron, being able to play at a super high level, like where he could dominate and be the best player of the team. But then Dame extends his career because it kind of transitions, right? Kind of like what I think Russ is going to do, but Dame is a better shooter, a better better kind of like I actually can't say he's a better leader because I think Russ is a really great leader as well. But Dame is a superstar, as is Russ, but and a little bit younger than Russ, so I thought that would be a good fit.
No, it would have been a good fit, but I thought you would have to keep Davis. But I mean, naturally, there's no way you could have kept Davis and then traded for Dame because Dame's on another level. I do like for the Lakers. I really hope that LeBron just chills this whole season, right, and lets Russ just be Russ.
Right.
He's like, hey man, the regular season's yours. Average 30, 20, and 20. Just go.
He gonna put up the numbers that he did for Nipsey. It's just like 20, 20, 20. Right? No, I do believe that you're gonna see a lot of these, like all of the youth for the Lakers play a lot during the regular season, and then when playoff time comes, all of a sudden it's just
you're on the bench.
Melo, LeBron, it's like the over 30 club is all that's going to be able to play, right? Right? All these young bucks aren't going to play, but yeah. So I mean, the Lakers ended up putting together a pretty good mixture of youth and obviously a lot of wisdom, let's say. No, but I think they fit. They fit. They got the shooting that they need. It's going to be interesting with how that defense changes a little bit because clearly they have more big bodies that aren't as mobile as and they've lost a lot of their like defensive strength. But I think having those two centers back there, they're going to go back to just being tough at the rim and forcing everybody to shoot. You can't go into the paint on the Lakers anymore. So that's going to be interesting. But we're not talking about the West this episode. We always bring it back to the West. We're actually going through the East. And when I was doing my research for this, Brandon, I was actually like, wow, the East is going to be tough, man. There was some teams that in my head were like, oh, these are making the playoffs. And then I was like, wait a minute. Wait, does that mean that this team's not going to be in the playoffs? And I'm like, wow. So the East is really, for sure, 10 deep. I think there's going to be at least 10 teams that are competing for playoff spots that are all going to be well over 500, which is a change, right? We're used to seeing the East where like half the playoff teams are under 500. So a lot of changes have been there. So it's going to be a great season. So how do you want to do it? You want to just go from 8 to 1? We'll do
From
your
8
list.
to 1, or do you want to do? I'll tell you, I have 12 teams on my list. I have like some locks. I have like that middle tier. I have the bottom guys, and then I have 2 wild cards.
Okay. Let's
So
do
we can start wherever you want.
Yeah, let's do it. I have 10
Okay.
that I put down. So let's do your 12 first, and then I'll give you my 12, and then let's talk about it, all right?
Okay. So I'll tell you from
my 10. Go ahead.
I'll tell you from top to bottom.
All right.
I got the Bucks, Nets, Heat, Celtics, Hawks, Sixers, Knicks, the Bulls, Pacers, Raptors, and then my wild card was the Hornets and the Wizards.
Okay. So this is what my top 8 are: Brooklyn, right, the Bucks, Miami, Philly, Indiana, the Celtics, Atlanta, and Chicago makes the playoffs. And then my 2 on the outside looking in were New York and Charlotte. So I don't think
you don't have the Pacers or the Raptors.
No, the Pacers are the fifth seed.
Oh, I missed them. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, so Pacers are the 5th seed. I don't think the Raptors make it.
Oh, yeah. Or the Wizards? You don't have my wild card Wizards in there?
Well, I mean, I think the Wizards are. I think the Wizards aren't going to be as good without Russ, so we'll see. But
we'll talk about that.
Yeah. So let's talk about these. So what are the teams that didn't make it? And let's kind of talk about that on yours. I guess you have 4 teams that didn't make it.
So what I have the Magic. Sorry, let me pull up the remaining East teams. What is it? The Magic?
Well, no, just let's talk about the 4 teams that you think are going to compete, but that didn't make it, that just missed making the top 8.
Oh, that are just missing it? So it's going to be the Pacers, Raptors, Hornets, and Wizards. Those are my bottom 4.
Okay, yeah, I have the Knicks, Charlotte, and the Raptors on there. I don't think that I'm not really looking at the Wizards as a playoff team. I think that was more of a fluke last season than a trend. But let's talk about it, man. Both of us agree that the Raptors aren't going to make it. Obviously, they lost Kyle Lowry. I think that's a big loss, which is why I took them out of the playoffs. Why do you think they don't make it?
So I think that, losing Lowry is a big thing. And plus, like, Van Fleet kind of took a step back last year after getting paid, which is a little disappointing. And Siakam also, he kind of fell off too.
Right.
But the one thing that the Raptors have been doing really well is drafting and developing their players. And they've got they're a pretty deep team outside of that, right? Like, they traded Powell away, but brought in Gary Trent, who I thought was real nice. That guy can get buckets, and he's a solid defender. He's not just you're not just going to run right through him.
They still have OG.
You have OG Anunoby, that dude they drafted. I cannot even think of his name right now.
I don't know.
But he's a lockdown defender too. They said that he just needs a shot. And so if his shot's money, then because they even drafted him a spot higher than what he was projected to go.
Yeah.
So I think defensively, they're going to be a strong team. Nick Nurse teams always fight. Like, they don't ever just quit. So I think with the depth, but lack of like true point guard leadership is going to hurt them a little bit, right?
And a star. Like, we thought Siakam was going to be able to like shine once Kawhi left and kind of carry that team, but he failed miserably,
like the second or third guy.
Right. So that's kind of where I look at it too. I think they, without a superstar there, it's just a bunch of role players that could definitely make a run because the team unity, and I think they're going to be well coached by Nick Nurse, but I just think they don't have enough horses to be able to compete with these other teams in the East to actually make it into the playoffs.
Yeah, they don't have enough guys that can just get buckets.
Right.
Like, I'm not even mad at a team of role players if some of those role players can just flat out score.
Right.
Like, but if they can't, the only other way to go, because like, if you look back at like the Pistons back in the day when they won their championship before, not the Bad Boy Pistons, but like
the Chauncey and Rip and the Wallace brothers.
None of those guys were superstars.
Right.
Like, they were all really good players by themselves, but probably better off as like second or third bananas. But once you put them all together,
right, they fit
really well. And then it was just lockdown defense, right? Like, that's why they had those finals games in the 80s, because nobody could score, but they played defense so well
right,
that you weren't scoring on them either.
And Rip and Chauncey could get buckets whenever they needed to.
Yeah, but like the NBA is not going to go back to. They're not going to allow the league to go into something where games are played in the 80s anymore.
Right. Yeah, they're gonna be calling way too many fouls to let that happen.
Yeah, there's no way a team like that could ever win again, and so that's why it hurts the Raptors, right?
Yeah. So the second team, I think we both agree, just barely misses. Did you have the Hornets in? I have the Hornets just barely missing.
They're my wild card.
So they might make it?
Yeah, well, so they're 11 on my list, right? Because I mean the playoffs technically runs 10 deep, right?
Okay.
Because you have the play-in tournament now.
Right.
So they're right there. Like they can jockey between anybody and possibly make it. They're definitely not top 8 though. Is what?
Yeah, I think that for me, obviously, I think they got the best ball brother. I think
I'm not ready to say that yet.
Well, I think that he's better than Lonzo.
He's more fun for sure.
I think he's more of like I could carry a team. I think Lonzo is a great like distributor. He could lead a team as the point guard, but I think the younger ball brother is a star. Like he could be the leading scorer. He could be like he's more of the superstar traits than I think Lonzo is. But I think it boils down to health. And I just don't think that, that team is going to stay healthy enough. They're too small in my eyes to be able to really like compete against some of these bigger teams. I don't know who's their big man that's Plumlee. Scary.
So Plumlee's not scary, right? I think it's Mason Plumlee.
Yeah, he was with Detroit last season.
Detroit last season, but he was with the Nuggets before that. He was always a really good backup center. Team USA always seems to want him because he's a good big man.
He's a grinder.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's not. To me, it's almost like he's like a Steven Adams, not nearly as strong. Don't get me wrong. He's like what you'd want from Steven Adams, right? Like
he can score better than Adams.
Center that can probably score better, but he doesn't cost you $25 million a year. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think Plumlee's like at around 10 or 12, which is fine. That's what I kind of want to pay for myself.
So who's their starting lineup? Are they going to put Rozier and Ball in the same lineup?
That's what I would run. I would run Rozier,
because they lost Monk. Monk's Ball, with the Lakers now. Yeah,
and then Hayward
and Graham.
Either Hayward or Bridges at the 3 or the 4, or just whatever, however you want to run them, and then Plumlee, and then you have Washington, who played some of their backup big man last year.
They have Graham there too, right?
No, Devontae Graham. He's in New Orleans now.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
See, I think they lost a lot of their depth. I think their
draft pick, Book Knight. That kid's gonna be good.
Okay, but they still lost a couple of really good pieces in Monk and Graham. I think that carried that team while those injuries were there. And I just don't trust, that what's the guy who came from Indy or the Utah that went to Boston and then went to Charlotte?
Hayward.
Yeah, he's just Hayward. I just don't trust him staying healthy to be able to really have that team be at full strength to compete. Because, like I said, we're talking about, I think the top 8. I think the top 8 in the East that I picked are just, it's murderer's row, man. They got a mix of superstars plus depth and talent, great coaching.
They picked up Oubre too. Sorry, I was just reading right now. They got Oubre. I like Oubre for them.
Yeah, that's a good piece. If he could stay healthy as well. He had some issues staying healthy with Golden State last season. And then who was the last team? Who was your 8 and 9 or 9 and 10?
Pacers and Bulls.
Okay, wow. Okay, so you have the Pacers missing and the Bulls missing. So we'll talk a little bit about that because I have them in my playoffs. So we'll talk about those teams and you could go. So who do you have at 8?
Hold on. 6, 7. Oh, actually I have the Bulls at 8. Sorry, I read 8 and 9. I have the Bulls at 8, Pacers at 9, Raptors are at 10, Hornets at 11, Wizards at 12.
Okay. So I have Chicago at 8. You also have Chicago at 8?
Yeah, I have them at 8.
Okay. So I just think that they've put a lot of pieces together. They have a really solid team. I just think it's going to take some time for them to gel because there's so many new pieces there. So that's why I put them at 8. They could be one of those teams that get hot at the end of the season and be a tough out, but probably not because they're going to be playing either Brooklyn or Milwaukee in the first round.
I just don't know how Levine and oh my God, DeRozan fit together. Like, I feel like some of their game is so similar, even though DeRozan's become a much better passer and he can play off the ball pretty well too.
And Levine's shot has gotten a lot better.
Levine is money, bro.
Yeah.
Like, he was so money. And then even for Team USA, he was a lockdown defender. So I wonder if that carries on, if he continues to do that in Chicago. There's just too many what ifs for me.
I just think that Lonzo is the glue that puts that team together, just because he does. So like DeRozan, if he's not scoring, isn't really that impactful because he's not great on defense, and even though he can distribute, that's not his forte.
Right.
Levine has to be your top scorer just because he's probably the most talented on that team.
Yeah.
Right. And then so the person that's going to step back and not necessarily need the points has to be Ball, and he loves being able to distribute. I could see Lonzo Ball being top 3 in assists this year, just from being the point guard of the team. And this is, like I said, this is the first year where he doesn't have to compete with ball handling duties, right?
Yeah,
so
they're going to be his.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're going to really see him flourish as a point guard. And, they have a lot of young talent there. And I just think that they end up pulling it off and getting into the playoffs as the 8th seed.
Yeah, I mean, they could be super nice. Like, if you start Ball, you have Levine as your 2, DeRozan as your 3. I can't remember who their pick was last year. I feel like I can't even think of his name, but he was a really good defender. They had him automatically guarding like all the team's best offensive players, and he's good. So he can play your 4, and he was showing some offensive prowess too. And then you got Booch as your 5. It's not a bad team, man. That's a squad.
Yeah, and like I said, I think in a few years we're going to be looking at them as they got Patrick Williams as listed as a power forward.
That's his name. Yes.
Yeah, and then
you got AC coming off the bench.
They have Kobe White. I think is going to be injured. Alex Caruso's there. Troy Brown Jr., Derek Jones Jr., and Tony Bradley are the backups.
The only one of those guys that really matters is Alex Caruso.
Right.
That guy's a beast. That's why the Lakers won't win it this year, was because they got rid of AC. That's going to be the only reason why.
Here we go. Anyways, we're talking about the East. Let's stay focused, my dude. So we both think the Bulls make the playoffs in the 8th seed. Who did you have as your 7?
The Knicks.
Okay. So I had the Knicks not making the playoffs. So tell me why you believe the Knicks are going to make the playoffs.
I just feel that they're so they last year, what were they, like the 4 seed? I feel they ended up punching above their weight. The league's a lot better. The East is a lot better this year, but I still feel that they're still going to bring that same kind of energy. I like Fournier for them over Reggie Bullock.
Mm-hmm. And then Kemba.
And then they got Kemba now. And if they can even get just 20 minutes out of Kemba, right? Like you let Quigley play, and then Burks, because Alex Burks was huge for them. But now, like, he doesn't have to be – those 2 guys don't have to be the guy, right? Like, they've got other dudes there that can kind of help and alleviate some pressure. Not everything has to be on them. And then Rose, too. Like, Rose played – that team is just – they were built really well last year. And they played so hard for Tibbs. I don't see them not playing hard again for Tibbs. You know what I mean? Like –
I think that they're not necessarily, they're not out of the playoffs because I think they're going to be worse. I think that everybody else got a lot better around them in the league or in the East, which is what pushes
4.
Huh?
That's why I have them 7.
Well, yeah, 4. I have them all the way out because the teams that I have in so I think the team that I have in that replaced them was Indiana. I think Indiana's going to, we'll talk about them, but I think Indiana's going to be really good this year with Rick Carlisle as the coach.
Absolutely.
And everybody's coming back healthy, right? So I just think talent-wise, that's a team that, if healthy, is one of the top teams in the East. They just can't stay healthy, and I think that Rick Carlisle being there, we saw what he did with Dallas. He
does
really
less with more, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I just think that Rick Carlisle makes a big change there, and the health. So for me, I think New York got exposed in the playoffs, and until they could have more of a fluid offensive game, I think that the defenses in the East are gonna be able to just pick apart that kind of just like ISO ball, where they just give it to Randall and just hope he could make a play, or give it. Kemba is another ISO guy. Fournier is more like, so they just brought in more of this ISO, which I just think isn't gonna crack it in the East.
But we're talking about regular season, and regular season basketball and playoff basketball, those are two totally different beasts. It's been proven time and time again that ISO ball doesn't really work as well unless you're like that next level type dude, right? In the playoffs. Yeah. But during the regular season, you can get away with that. That's why I don't feel that the Knicks slip out of the playoffs, because for 82 games they're going to be allowed to do that.
Well, here's the thing that I think is my only pushback is before a lot of these teams didn't really care about the regular season because the East always had so many gimme games. Those gimme games aren't there anymore. So like there's going to be people that miss out on the playoffs by like half a game, one game. So all of these games I think are going to matter a lot more, which for me, I think a team like the Knicks are going to have to play they're going to have to play teams that are giving them their best, because they understand that at the end of the season, if I lose this game, that could be the difference between making the playoffs and not making the playoffs, or being the 4th seed and being the 7th seed, right? It's just like the West, right? I think they're going to be just like the West, where
it's going to be just as competitive. That's for
exactly
sure.
Where one injury could be the difference between the 1 seed and the 7th seed, right? Or a few games here or there. So I just think that the East games usually aren't like they're not that you only look forward to a few games. Now it's like every single game is a potential playoff matchup. So I think they just they're going to play a lot more tough defenses, which for me makes them not make the playoffs. So
that's fair. I can get behind that. That's
fine. So I have, so you had Knicks I have Atlanta at 7. A lot for this. My car sounds sexy if somebody's trying to steal it. So I know that it's my car that's being stolen. But Atlanta, I have at 7. Probably for most of the reasons why you had the Knicks falling to 7. I think Atlanta is still a really solid team. I just think everybody around them got better. However, Atlanta's getting back some health that I think is going to be, able to make that. I just feel as if I think I love Trae Young. And I think that he is a superstar. I just couldn't put him above the 6 teams I had, above. I couldn't put Atlanta above the teams that I have above them. So I still think they're going to be great. I mean, dude, when I was doing this, I'm like, the East playoffs are going to be phenomenal.
Oh, it's going to be so good. I know he's not here, but my other half, he's like, I can't believe how excited I am for this NBA season. He's like, both sides are just, it's going to be a gauntlet. Like there's no walkthrough. Like, because I think sorry, we're going to go back to the West real quick. Like LeBron's always been knocked for like his East playoff runs, because it's like, bro, you were in the East. You got to just walk right through. Like if he was playing in there now, there's no walk. Like it would be hell. Like, it'd be brutal.
Right. And we talked about that too. That's why we thought Giannis, if he has a run, and wins a few chips and all this kind of stuff, that starts elevating him because of the strength of schedule, right? The competition that he has to play.
Like you look at it a little bit differently than you look at other previous guys that have come from the East, because now it almost feels like it's on par, like it's even.
Yes, so I agree. I think the top 4 in the East and the top 4 in the West are pretty similar. I don't think you can.
Some people say the Nets are better than everybody in the league.
Yeah, right, I think they are. I mean, you gotta do it, at least on paper. They have the most talent of any team, including the Lakers, right? So I think the Nets are the favorite in Vegas to win the championship as well. It's as long as they stay healthy, right?
Health is the only thing that hurts.
Right. Okay, so let's go with 6.
Well,
Who do
hold
you
on,
have
real
at 6?
quick about the Hawks.
Okay.
I have the Sixers. Oh, we'll talk Sixers.
Well, where did you have the Hawks?
So I have the Hawks at I have them at 5.
Wow, so you kept them right where they were last season.
I did. I feel that so even though I'm not a big Trae Young fan, even though I'm not really ready to call him a superstar yet, especially the new rule changes that have come to the league.
Yeah.
Like that's going to hurt his game a little bit, but I do think he's a smart enough player to figure it out. The thing that I like so much about him is that it's not so much just him; it's the team they built around him.
Right.
Like they keep finding pieces that complement him so well. And I feel like once Nate McMillan took over, which now they're gonna have, they might even be better to be honest, because now that they're gonna have the full season of Nate McMillan being there and running his schemes rather than who was it? Was it Casey that was their no? Casey's in.
No, it was some like new person. I don't know.
Oh yeah, it was the assistant for. Dang it! Now I can't remember his name.
I think it was some white dude. I just remember some like white dude.
But McMillan, now that he's there and he's helped Trae see some other things about like the way it should be played, I just feel like with unlocking that, DeAndre Hunter coming back, they're just going to be such a better team.
Bogdan being healthy
again,
right?
Gallo still coming off the bench doing his thing. That was the biggest shock to me. I thought Gallo was going to want to start when he got to the Hawks.
Yeah,
to see him be like, no, I'll come off the bench. They brought back John Collins, who I think showed some really good heart too.
Yeah, they're on a pretty team friendly deal. I think
right? Yeah, not terrible.
They think it's like $25 million a year. Yeah, and they still have the center over there, and I mean they pretty much have a solid player at every position, and
1 through 10.
Reddish should be coming back. Healthy. Like they had some pieces that were rotation pieces that were injured in their playoff run, and they still went far as they did. So that's what I'm saying. I think that team is good. I think that they're going to be dangerous in the playoffs. But I just think the 6 teams I put ahead of them are just a tad bit better. So who do you have at 6?
At 6, I have the Sixers.
Okay.
Really, it's just because of I don't know where or
we don't know who's going to be on the team.
Yeah. So depending on how that shook out, I probably would have moved them up.
I have your Celtics at 6. So I moved them up. They were at 7 last season. I moved them up to 6. And the only reason why, and you got to admit it too, because I have it on camera, you saying they had the most disappointing offseason of anybody in the NBA, right? They didn't do anything necessarily to make their team better. And everybody else in the East, I think, did. Even Atlanta that didn't necessarily make any moves, they're bringing back so many like good rotation players and people that could be stars that you have to say that they're getting better. And, I think the Celtics, the only thing that they're bringing back is, healthy players. And I don't think they replaced any of the people that they lost. So, to me, that's why they're 6. I mean, I could put them even lower, but I put them at 6 out of respect for you.
So I have the Celtics at 4. And let me tell you why. Granted, I hated the Josh Richardson trade. I hate it because I just can't stand that guy. Like, I don't think he's very good. He had that one good run in Miami, so that's wrong. He had one good run in Miami for a minute, and then he
had he played decent with Philly too. That's why he ended
for
up
some stretches,
right?
But he just
inconsistent.
He hasn't been consistent since that Miami run.
Yeah.
But the thing that I do like about the Celtics more now, because their biggest issue last year when you look at them was their bench, right? Like once Tatum or Brown sat, like they just fell apart. Like they would be in games, they would be running games as long as Brown and Tatum are playing. The moment you lose one of them or both of them, it went to trash. And now I think they're a lot deeper team. They lucked into Schroeder because Schroeder thought that he was worth more than $84 million or whatever it was, right? So you get him for 5. So he's going to be playing for money. He doesn't want to have another LA series.
Well, he was playing for money last season too, so.
But he thought he was guaranteed. He's like, we're going to win another championship. It's going to be easy. Like he had the whole wrong mindset.
Yeah.
It'll be different this year. And plus, when but he had Chris Paul for his leadership, and we all know what the point guard does for people. He just makes them better.
He sure does. He sure does.
But I like them bringing in him. They brought back Horford. They had some big man issues. I think he's a really good big man, even if he is on the older side. But he's like a good team leader, keeping guys in focus, right? Like he's much better than Tristan Thompson.
Right.
You know what I mean? For the veteran presence in the locker room. They brought back Cantor. I love Cantor. I love
as a backup, And I mean, it gives Robert Williams a chance to really flourish as the starting center.
Exactly. And so now you've got more depth there. So, coming off the bench, you're going to have quality players. And Robert Williams, who can't stay healthy, you still got plenty of other options there. And then Richardson, even though I don't really like him, he can play basketball. He's not going to start for you there. He's not going to be somebody you're depending on. But if he's my guy coming off the bench, 7th, that's fine. I'm cool with that.
So you're fine with Schroeder as your starting point guard?
Absolutely. He's not terrible. He can't be any worse than an injured Kemba. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the Celtics are the Celtics. They'll find a way to do Celtic things. And I think that they'll end up, around the sixth seed. It'll be interesting to see how Brown comes back. If he still has the athleticism.
It's just a wrist. It's not going to be like it wasn't his knees. He broke his wrist. He'll be fine. I just worry about the shooting because his shot had come around a long way.
Right. And if it affects the way how aggressive he is on defense, right? So, So I mean, look, with Brown and Tatum, that talent enough is getting you into the playoffs. If the guys around them can elevate their game, that's great. I mean, Horford is a lot older than the last time he was on the Celtics.
He just took a year off. He was just vacationing, bro.
Cantor is, he
play defense, but he'll get you boards and get you.
Yeah, he can get you boards. We'll see, man. The East is tough. Like I said, I think they're a playoff team. I got them at 6. You have who at 6? You have Philly. So why do you? And you said mainly because we don't know who that team is.
Yeah. We talked about them.
Yeah, I put Philly at 4. Just because I know how shrewd of a business guy their GM is over there. I don't think he's gonna lose a trade. So he'll figure out a way to bring he's either gonna figure out a way to keep Ben Simmons there if they can't get the right pieces and make him happy, or like rekindle that relationship somehow, or he's gonna get somebody there to pair up with Tobias and Embiid, and I think they still are like one of the top 4 teams in the East.
I mean, I don't see Simmons being happy there. You can't have everybody on that whole team talk some kind of shit about you, and then you'd be like, you know what? I do want to come back and play here.
But these Aussies, man, they like punishment, bro. You see what they're doing over there with COVID and stuff. They like that punishment, man.
I thought they were doing well. Oh yeah, that's why they were doing well, because they had
they had the Gestapo over there. Let's go with 5. Who do you have at 5?
I had the Hawks at 5. No, we're in the top 3 now, I think.
Well, I have Indy at 5. We talked about Indy. We talked about 4. Yeah. So let's go to the top 3. Who do you have at 3?
I have the Heat at 3.
I do too. I think that the Heat are going to be a lot better. The only reason why I think that they don't overshoot, they don't jump over Milwaukee and Brooklyn, is because Miami does a great job resting their elderly. I think Lowry, I think Jimmy, maybe even Bam every now and then, because they want to keep them healthy. They do a good job kind of resting them, and I don't think they're going to go as hard in the regular season, but they're so good.
Points.
Huh?
They don't generate enough points. They're kind of like the Raptors, right? Except for they have dudes that probably can score a little more, right? Like their scores are just a little bit better, but they're not at the Nets. The Nets level scoring.
Who is, bro?
Nobody.
I don't think that's the bar we should be aiming for.
But I mean, we know the Bucks. We know the Bucks can do it in the regular season, because it's been shown multiple times.
Right.
Like within. But I don't think the Heat have enough scoring to to be up there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I think they're gonna lean a lot heavier on Hero. Hero moves back to the bench, which I think he fits better in and is more comfortable in. And so I think they're gonna have that bench punch that they didn't have last season, just because Hero was a starter for a lot of the season. I think Duncan Robinson's going to get even more open looks with Lowry there. I mean, the Heat are a different team when they have a solid point guard there. And I think Lowry is better than even Dragic, who was the point guard.
And Dragic was always injured too.
Yeah, but I mean, when he was playing, that's when they made their run to the championship, right? So I think Lowry is obviously a better defender for sure. And I think, he's going to be his IQ and his ability to play the point guard position is really going to help out. And once again, we always like what the most popular Miami meme is always Jimmy Butler, like
on that bench.
Draining himself, like just dead, right? Because he's doing everything for that team. And I think with Lowry there, now you're going to have a fresh Jimmy in the fourth quarter. That's a pretty tough guy. That's a pretty good guy to have as your closer. And then they still have Bam there. So I think that they have a lot of talent. I think they're the third best team in the East. Obviously because, Milwaukee and Brooklyn are there as well. But they're going to be a tough team, man. I think that, Miami is going to be a tough out. They possibly can beat, these top two guys, depending on how well those guys gel and how well they're playing come playoffs.
I was just pulling up their roster right now, and I even like they picked up the other Morris brother, the cheaper one that plays the exact same way, that's not getting paid $18 million.
Yeah.
Clippers are so stupid. And then they've got PJ Tucker, which PJ Tucker might not do anything for you offensively. He might get torched by Kevin Durant in the playoffs, but you know what PJ Tucker is? He's a smart basketball player, right? Like he's going to go out there, he's going to compete the whole time.
He's going to give you energy.
He's going to give you energy, and he'll be chilling in that corner, ready to knock down a corner three.
Ready to try to knock down a corner three.
It's in a solid clip. But Depot, right? Like, imagine if Depot is able to stay healthy. Like, that's kind of scary. They could end up being a lot better than we think they're going to be if he's able to be healthy and give them at least 20 minutes a game.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to be one of the best defensive teams in the league. Absolutely. They have shut down guys at every position other than Duncan Robinson, right? So Lowry is a solid defender. Obviously, we know Jimmy buckets. PJ Tucker probably moves into that starting lineup. He's a solid defender. And then Bam. So I think that defensively, they're going to be pretty tough to beat. And then, like you said, offensively, they have some guys that could go off, like Tyler Hero's a straight scorer. Duncan Robinson's a straight scorer. Jimmy could get buckets. Bam could get buckets. So, and Lowry could get you, 15 to 20 points as well per game. So they're a solid team, man. That top three is nothing to
joke about. Like,
they could easily
top three.
Yeah, they could get into that 2 seed too. If any of these top two teams have an injury, I could see Miami jumping them.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm with you with that. Absolutely.
Who do you have at 2?
So I have the Nets at 2 only because the Bucks won the championship. The Bucks right now hold the belt. You got to take it from them. So, honestly, got truth, it could have won. That's probably really just the Nets, but I gave it to the Bucks out of respect because they got
I have Milwaukee at 2. And it's just because Brooklyn. I mean. It's like the only thing that stops Brooklyn from not being the 1 seed is
themselves,
health.
Yeah.
Right. So if any of those guys aren't healthy or aren't playing for an extended period of time, then they become more beatable. Clearly, we saw Milwaukee be able to beat them, but even then, took 7 games to do it.
And a big toe away,
right?
You know what I mean? Like, it was close,
right. So I mean, it's definitely between those two teams. I just put Brooklyn over Milwaukee just because I think the talent levels is higher. Also, I think Milwaukee losing PJ Tucker is another depth piece. Obviously, that moves somebody else into that position, take somebody off of their bench that wasn't what was there. But they are going to get DiVincenzo back. They're going to get some people that were, unhealthy. I just didn't. I didn't really see who Milwaukee picked up.
I couldn't think of what they did in the offseason, so I wanted to look at what the rest of the roster looks like. I know they got George Hill, which is a solid back. I feel like,
but he was there, right?
No, he had left. He was in. Oh my God, I can't think. Oh, he was playing in Philly actually. Let's see what their roster is. Oh, they got Grayson Allen, which don't sleep on that dude. I like Grayson Allen for them. He's just a role player, but I like him.
You mean Mr. Technical Foul?
Nah, not in the NBA. He's all right. Not in the NBA. Rodney Hood, Justin Jackson.
That's a good piece if he could stay healthy. To punch off the bench for scoring.
Sammy Ojale, Jeff Teague. I mean, yeah, they didn't really. They need another big. I don't like I like their guard rotation. I like some of their wings. I do not like their bigs though. Other than Giannis and Lopez, and I mean, gotta love Portis.
Yeah,
but that's it. That's three. You know what I mean?
With what the other teams have done, definitely.
That's not enough.
Yeah, and then I think you have Brooklyn at 2. At 2, I have Brooklyn at 1. I just think they got even better.
Yeah,
I think with all the pieces that they got, even though it's older pieces, still they all play a role. If they could get anything out of Aldridge, that's huge.
He looked good for them before he went down with that.
Exactly.
That's scary, bro.
And then they still have what's his name?
They still have Blake, who was phenomenal in the playoffs against Giannis. Blake's card was not defense. You were never just gonna run right through him. But I did not expect him to play that kind of defense on Giannis. You know what I mean?
They got Patty Mills.
Yep, and I love that pickup.
Yeah,
bro. That dude, he's a gamer. That's Kyrie insurance right there.
Yeah, and I mean they still have Joe Harris there, who's lights out shooter. I mean,
playoffs.
And these 3 guys are gonna have a whole off season to figure it out, right? They were figuring it out on the fly last season. Obviously, you saw how good they could play in the playoffs. Not everybody was healthy. Yeah, man, I don't see. It's going to be really tough to beat that team, and I'm a Laker homer, but it's going to be tough for even the Lakers to be able to beat that team if they end up meeting in the finals. I think that's going to be the finals matchup, but we'll get into that in a few weeks. We'll get into that in a few weeks, but
all right.
But yeah, man. So it seems like we were decently on the same page. A few here and there, but overall, I love doing this because it made me really realize how good the East has become, and we already know how deep the West is, which we'll do on another show.
Just let you know it's going to be that good of a season, man. I say that going into every season. I'm always so excited, but this one is the one. It's like the one,
right? Knock on wood, health and COVID keeps. That's the biggest things. But overall, I mean, just with the way these teams, and it's great to see teams actually play to win instead of just go for the tank job and stuff like that. All these teams are being competitive. I think when you saw Milwaukee win it gave hope for these other teams that look, you don't need this super team to be able to win a championship, and it's going to be great, and I'm excited about it, man, because if the East is competitive, then there's no weakness in the league,
Right. Exactly. No, I'm with you.
Beautiful, brother. What do you have to plug for, everybody watching and whatnot? B&E podcast, how consistent has that been?
It's been so inconsistent, brother. Esteban is they're gonna get married at the end of the year.
Wow.
So they're doing wedding planning stuff.
Got you.
So we have one unfinished pod because one of us, he's not here, so we're gonna say it was him, was entirely too drunk for the end of it.
So I'm gonna guess that was you. just because I know you, and you probably are the one that knows how to record on your equipment. So you probably didn't know what to do. That's awesome, man. Well, hopefully in a couple weeks we'll get you back on the show. We could do this for the West, and hopefully we can have Esteban on the show too. That would be great. But yeah, man, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you. Stay safe, stay hydrated, and we shall see you next time.
We're out.